Welcome to The Third Story. I'm your host, Leo Sidran. Today's conversation features singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, mostly guitar player, and freak, Brooklyn freak, Ryan Scott. Listen, I don't want to get too weird here so early in the show, but if you have not been listening to Ryan Scott's new record, A Freak Grows in Brooklyn, or if you don't know who Ryan Scott is, and by the way, chances are you have not been listening to the record and you don't know who he is, and to give you a sense of why I think that's probably the case, his latest video from the record, which is an in-studio performance making of video of his song Roll On By, has settled in nicely at 299 views on YouTube. 299 views. Let's assume 2 of those views are Ryan checking the upload to make sure it's cool. And 7 more are Ryan looking to see how many people have watched it. And let's say 90 are his close family and friends. I don't know how YouTube metrics work, but I'm going to tell you that I've watched it 22 times. So that's 178 other possible people who've watched the video. I want to give each and every one of you the chance to be the 179th person to watch this video. Because if you haven't been listening to this record, and if you haven't been checking this guy out, that's on you. That is your problem. You know I don't do promotion. You understand. You're with me here. I'm not about promotion here. I am here to unpack a person's life experience, lay it out on the table, and figure out where the work comes from. That is what I come to do. And we're going to do that with Ryan in a minute. We're going to lay out all the experience and we're going to find out where this work is coming from. But before we do that, I need to ask you a question. What are you listening to that's so important that you're not listening to Ryan Scott, A Freak Grows in Brooklyn? Listen, I know there's a lot of good music out there. I know that there's a lot I don't know about. I'm not saying that I know or that I'm listening to all of it. I'm afraid to hear new music. Somebody tells me there's a new great record to hear. First thing that I feel is panic. I need like 6 people to tell me about something before I listen to it. And even then, I go into it with a combination of trepidation and anxiety. I get that there's a lot of music. And so I understand why you don't know this record perfectly well. That's clear. That's obvious. Not that there's anything wrong with that, you know? But there is something wrong with that because you need to listen to this. And also, if you don't like it, you don't have to tell me. If you go to his Bandcamp page, which I'll link to at third-story.com on the website, and if you go to his Bandcamp and you don't like it, you don't have to tell me that. I understand and I will have appreciated that you went, and that's fine. But if you go and you decide that you're going to buy it, he's going to sell it to you on Bandcamp for a minimum of $7 and you can pay what you want. What you're going to do is you're going to pay $14. You're going to pay the $7 that he's asking for the record, and then you're going to pay another $7 in back pay for all the times that you didn't go hear this cat and you didn't go see this cat play. Third-story.com is the podcast. Patreon.com/thirdstorypodcast is the way to support it financially. And by the way, if you do, you'll get to hear extra bonus content from time to time. Like this week, there's a whole bunch of extra interview in which Ryan lays out his technique for recording on his 8-track tape machine. Geeky goodness. Do something for me, please, if you don't mind. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Leave a review. Rate it. Let people know. Do that for me, please. And one last thing. For those of you concerned about the Woody Goss episode that was taken down last week, don't worry. We've been negotiating, my people and his people, and we're close to reaching a settlement, and I'll be able to share that episode again with you soon. It's not a done deal yet. Some of the things we talked about are still being fact-checked, vetted, and decoded by a crack team of funkologists, but I am confident that I will be able to get that episode to you again shortly. So that's good news. Here's Ryan Scott. Boom. Ryan Scott, do you work with computers? Do you make music on computers?
Yeah, unfortunately.
I thought I heard that you were working like exclusively on tape or a cassette tape or something. Yeah. Did you make a record on a cassette tape machine?
I tried my damnedest to, and then I finally broke down at the end. If you want to go into it.
It's so geeky. But I will say this. If somebody says that they made a record,
okay,
the first thing I feel is a kind of panic and,
Of course, the normal things.
you know, all of the normal things, you know. And then I was like, man, I'm going to check out this Ryan Scott record, you know. And you may remember that I don't even think I got through the whole thing the first time before I went on a total social media rampage about it.
Shit. Yes. Awesome.
But the thing that piqued my interest initially was that either you said or somebody said that it was made on an 8-track cassette machine.
Basically, I spent 6 months on the cassette without looking at the computer. And I have this, it's a Tascam 488.
I know the one.
Yeah, Mark 1. I'm in the market for a Mark 2. I'm trying to get another one. You know, I've been using the computer to record for years and years and years, not usually trying to make my own art project. So my jam doing all my, you know, rent work is always Pro Tools, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
I bought this 488 probably like 8 years ago because I finally got, growing up, jazz always just played in my apartment.
Yeah.
You know, I had a little 4-track when I was a kid. I don't really remember doing anything with it. Got computers, you know, hacky multi-track young man. Then inherited a little Fostex 4-track.
Mm-hmm.
Got this rehearsal space in Gowanus finally.
Right.
This is probably, 8 years ago. After years of never being able to make noise.
Right.
And I was like, oh, there's drums here.
Yeah.
Started messing around with that little 4-track. Just making and bouncing. Really, I have there's charm to the tapes. So did that for a few years, and then I was like, man, oh, what's that? I saw a picture on, it was like a picture of Madlib's space.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's that 8-track cassette?
Does he?
multi-track?
That's what he works with.
I mean, I think the Quasimodo records.
Uh-huh.
The more I've used the machine, it's like, he's maybe bouncing samplers to that. And then they clean it up. How often he's using it. But certainly they say X record and X record were made on that machine. So I found one on eBay. This is the super dorky shit. Got it. I got it for like $220.
Yeah.
So I've had good eBay karma over the years.
Yes.
It came. I turned it on. 10 minutes, it died. I was like, shit. What am I going to do? Looking at that Tascam factory service in Jersey, which I'd never got. I ended up shipping it to Tascam because they're like, yeah, we'll fix it.
They still service those things.
I shipped it. It was so much money to ship it. Gave them $400 to fix it. $700 later, I had it back.
Yeah.
Cherry. And then it sat. Because I tried to use it in the routing. I just hadn't taken, it was not time to sit down and be like, oh, I got to figure out how to actually work this. 5 years later, move into this new space right down the street from here. And I was like, okay, the time has come.
Right.
And I was working on some other stuff, digital at the time, and kind of using that as a canvas to work on drum miking, because I'm printing everything to 2. I'll take a lot of it was maybe 7 mics, I hate to say, on the drums.
But then you sub it down to 2?
Yeah, and commit to my stereo.
You do?
Because it was over this period of 2 years time, like combination of practicing drums 6 hours a day while miking them, while trying to.
And were you a drummer before that? Kind of.
The first apartment in Queens, musicians lived upstairs.
Right.
My roommate was a drum maker, so we had awesome drums and they were set up and we could play all night.
Right.
And that was my 18 to 21.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about this period.
Yeah.
I guess. So I don't know what to do now. If we should talk about this drum, tell me about the drum mic, and then we're gonna go back to your 18 to 21.
Yeah, the drum miking.
So were you going after a sound? I mean, it seems to me that somewhere between Sly Stone and like the Ringo drum sound is kind of where you're at.
Yeah, I mean the thing with that machine, I was working in digital at that point, really trying to make some tunes for real.
Yeah.
And fucking around at my space
for
fun and demoing on that and using Speed. And then, when I would...
Using on your vocals or on everything?
Different combinations of everything, I'd suppose, at this point.
Interesting. And that's part of this, that's still part of the sound?
Yeah, I mean, certainly for those tunes. On the record.
On the record. And so, okay, so the machine...
Not to give anything away.
No, the machine becomes a big part of the process then.
It becomes absolutely. Well, once I kind of figured it out, and then I take it home...
Yeah.
And at that point, my good monitors were working and just plug it straight into the monitors.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't make it to the thing, but in some subconscious way, you know, if I listen to the shit straight out the tape, and it's so much closer to the thing
that you want,
you know, and I try to, I mean, Revolver or whatever is always the benchmark, but
clearly for you.
Yeah, well, that, and, you know, Are You Experienced, and, you know, Fresh, and all the things that I love, and the Stevie Wonder quintessence 5 record thing. You know, that's the thing. Those are the things that
you strive for.
I love, Well, and then coming on, it's like, man, I have to work so hard on the computer to get even in the realm
of what the tape does.
Of just once I kind of dial it in, and and just I've always, it never felt, I don't want to piss anybody off, but it's never felt real after all these years of recording on the computer. It just never feels right to me.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's like you come back in and listen to the take with the band off the tape, and, you know,
you exhale.
It's just more fun. I don't know. I want to have fun. So I'm trying to, it's like, that's okay. I was so, but like, no, what? No, I really, it's got to be tape.
But I also wonder, I mean, obviously the first thought that I have as somebody who works on the computer, and probably most people would have, especially if you think about kids who never saw a tape, or even who were never told in any way, nobody ever said, like, you have 16 tracks, you have 24 tracks, you have you have any limitation at all on the process. My first thought is, okay, well, obviously working into technical limitations like that will also change the way you approach putting an arrangement together, even the order that you track things in, all that stuff, right?
Absolutely. And all my heroes had to deal with that. I mean, I don't want to be Grumpy McGee.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of, being 36, you know, it's like, don't call me a millennial.
Right.
But
you are technically,
I guess technically I am, you know, now, if I look up the years, but, you know, I'm 60 inside.
Totally. I associate you so deeply with Brooklyn. You made a record called A Freak Grows in Brooklyn. And, you know, you are definitely growing in Brooklyn, but you're a California guy.
I guess so. I mean, it'll be 18 years here and 18 years there. Well, I was born in California, lived in Denver for 6 years when I was a little kid.
Okay.
And then we moved back.
And Northern California, right?
Yeah. I was born at Stanford Hospital, lived in Menlo Park till I was 18 months old, then Denver for 6 years, then St. Louis for a year, then back to Menlo Park, that was where I started playing guitar.
What do your parents do?
My dad was a stockbroker. It was a simple way, but, worked for all the firms and doing whatever. By the end, he was traveling salesman of managed futures.
That'll give you the blues right there, you know?
Oh, God, yeah, it's the least bluesy thing. Yeah, going to high school in Carmel. They were golfers, and Carmel was Golf Central.
Check it out.
And I'm an only child, so it was like, that's why we were, just one kid. Yeah, move him around.
Yeah.
So we moved down from Menlo Park to Carmel Valley in the middle of 7th grade. And by that time, I mean, I'll just give you the quick. I started at 10.
Yeah.
My mom had this guitar that she didn't play, but she got it when she was a kid. I still have it. It is my nylon string guitar. And it's not that great, but it's still better than most nylon string guitars that friends have. Started taking lessons with this guy at Griffin in Palo Alto, this radical guitar store, and he was an acoustic fingerstyle dude. Like, don't play electric guitar. Anyone can teach him rock guitar. So I was doing finger picking. Then tragically, he moved to Portland. And then by that time, I had, tab books of Van Halen.
And who was in that part of California at the time? That's just when Apple is exploding?
I was kind of before. That's the thing. It was happening.
Yeah.
But
not everybody was into tech and that stuff.
I mean, it was still funky. We go to San Jose Guitar Center, and, it wasn't high end. Not that I've been back in so long, but I can only imagine everything there looks new.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of right before that.
Yeah.
And then we left.
By the time you get to high school, what are you into?
Well, I moved down. I was 12. By that time, I had sat in at a couple bars, we met this dude. His name was Sam Marshall in the line for a Santana show at Fillmore West.
With your folks?
With my dad.
He took you down to see Santana?
My dad's like my biggest supporter. And
he is. He dug it.
And he's into, they're not musical. I'm kind of an alien.
Did they play stuff for you, though?
They didn't have a big record collection, but, he's into, like, oh, Santana, check this.
Yeah.
He really loved Mark Knopfler. He loves Mark Knopfler, so.
That's a great... Mark plays
Knopfler's
some
one of the
serious
best
guitar.
ever.
Yeah.
That's a very important element of the thing, actually.
Yeah.
And I would transcribe Mark Knopfler solos, or not transcribe, but learn them,
You're checking out Mark Knopfler. Your dad takes you to Santana. You meet a dude in line waiting to get into the concert.
He invites us to Woodside to his gig. I sit in. People go crazy. My dad is most impressed of all.
Is there any video?
Not of that, unfortunately, but there's video. So when I moved to Carmel, luckily enough, there was a bunch of obsessed kids. Or at least my buddy Storm was super obsessed guitar player. And I went over, and so we started our band Blue Nova and hit the Monterey bar scene as the kid band. And did that, and then eventually we were playing the little blues festival, Monterey Fairgrounds thing. A couple of years, and then it got bigger. And by the end, we were kind of, doing Maceo covers and had keys and horns. And
were you singing?
Yeah. Singing and lead guitar. In the beginning, it was 2 singers, 2 lead guitar players, and then it all blew up in 8th grade and became 2 bands. Anyway, so it was like gigs. At that point, I was blues obsessed. In the beginning, I was just playing SRV solos, note for note.
Yeah.
And whatever else, like...
You were playing by 12 years old. You went and sat in. You obviously had figured something out quickly.
Right.
On
and
your
I was
own.
into it.
Yeah.
That was all I did.
Yeah.
Maybe a little roller hockey, but pretty much come home from school.
Right. How'd you do in school?
Straight A's, baby.
Is that true?
No, yeah, totally. I was a very straight edge, like, an only child. I'm just in my room, and I became obsessed with that. I was always good in school. Till, senior year, I let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then moving to Carmel, Monterey Jazz Festival spends buku bucks on the education system there. Jazz education, I should say. So, drop me into 7th grade. There's a group of clinicians that come around to the high schools of the county, once a month for a period of 5 months during the year to coach the jazz big bands.
I see.
So... met my mentor, Bruce Foreman. The legend.
Yes.
The unappreciated legend. And he was like, man, you gotta learn bebop. I'm like, no, you gotta... I just want to play one note. And he's like, you and your circular vibrato. And I'm like, you need to use vibrato. I don't know. No. We fought.
Did you push back on it?
A little bit. I was just, at that point, so far down the...
blues hole.
Yeah, the Albert Freddie Beebe thing. That was what I was really into. And Allman Brothers and guitaristic type of things. But I was exposed to that, and, it was jazz camp every summer. And eventually, it's funny, by the end of high school, I was starting to convert. Had gotten rid of my distortion pedals, and I was never an archtop guy. I love Bruce's playing.
Yeah.
And Peter Bernstein.
Yeah.
But I'm much more, when I heard the Bill Frisell trio, Kermit, Joey record, that was my shit completely. High school, by the sophomore year might have been really Bill Frisell-y, and then junior year was really Schofield style. Those were the two. Bill Frisell was my guy.
Yep.
Full finesse, control.
Yeah.
I was never a shredder, and I never did metal shredding, so the speed thing, I was like, I can't, or I want to know what's going on before I get there. Yeah, so that, and then I came to New York, following that path. And
so what did you come to New York to do? What brought you to New York?
To do jazz.
Did you go to school?
I didn't. We came and looked at Manhattan School, and, there were friends, and that was a thing, like the Monterey
Yeah.
thing, and the combo competition happens.
Yeah.
So like I saw, one of my best buds, Frank Lacrasto, play for the first time when we were 15 or 16.
Wow.
And, the whole Berkeley High,
Yes.
Ambrose,
Totally.
Jonathan, Thomas Morgan, Justin Brown, all the cats. And dudes would come into town, and then we'd travel with the big bands and get to know, the county kids. And then after senior year of high school, I went to Japan with the big band from there that they pull from whoever comes to Monterey for the competition. This is too specific, but there was a kid from LaGuardia.
Who came out from out here.
Yeah. And we all went to Japan the summer after senior year. And Dominic Farinacci from Cleveland. Yeah, a bunch of people that I still know.
So that's so interesting.
Play.
So you end up, that sounds so exciting to me. Like you're in senior in high school from one area, but you end up kind of meeting like-minded kids of your generation, some of whom go on to establish themselves and are somebody like Dominic, for example, who I know out of the Cleveland scene also. You meet in high school on one of these trips.
Well, and then you know them if you go to New York and you don't have to go to college to hang out.
Well, that's a thing, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. I think, I went to college I have a history degree. I don't have a music degree, right? And
that's smart.
And at the time, particularly, I felt like I don't want to get a music education and then find out that I'm struggling and this is the only thing I have this is the only education I have. And I found that I still networked with all the music students in my school. Networking meaning hang out and play together and play gigs together and stuff.
That's the whole game of music school anyway. I mean, Bruce Foreman actually sat me down before I left, and he was like, dude, if you're going to go to college, don't go to music school. Yeah. Like, just do something, because, and I don't want to get too dark on music school, but...
Feel free.
It's bullshit. And, I mean, you're just paying for the networking.
Yeah.
And a shit ton of money at that.
Yeah.
So why not, I mean, regardless of the backup plan, because that's over anyway, but just studying something that's kind of, works to study in that format.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I mean...
But did you ever feel like you missed out on some access to anything? Like, not even networky stuff, but just like, is there stuff that people you wish you would have had access to study with that you didn't get next to or to hang with or whatever?
So we came out, when I was a younger man...
Yeah.
And I heard about Berkeley School of Music.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to Berkeley School of Music. That's awesome.
Yeah.
By the time it came around, we came out to New York and checked out Manhattan School and saw, Ambrose was up there and a bunch of other friends, but no guitar players. It's big band.
Yeah.
I had done the big band thing enough to know that only Freddie Green is necessary, if that.
Yeah.
So... Okay, went down to New School. That kind of felt like jazz camp for $40,000 a year.
Yep.
And I had a ton of friends that went there. I mean, that was the thing. So and it didn't get enough money to, if I got full ride.
Maybe.
Sure. But at that point, my dad didn't really care. My mom wanted me to go to school because I got in good grades and SAT scores and shit. But we just drove out. He dropped me off and... It was right next to Smoke, so
Uptown.
I was super pumped.
Like off Broadway up at 100 and something.
Yeah, I would go there every Monday to the jam.
Yeah.
Meet people, like Peter Bernstein's playing around the corner from this. La-di-la-di-la, did all the jazz things.
Like such as going to the jam sessions, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I would skateboard down to Cleopatra's Needle all the other nights with my guitar on my back. I fell once on the guitar. It was fine.
And you'd sit in?
Yeah, well, that was the late night jam, and Eric Lewis was still around.
Yes.
Wayne Escoffrey, I remember. All very excited. Man, I was so excited.
Yeah.
And go to Smalls, it's like Roy used to be at Smalls in those days. And then I remember trying to go up to Lennox Lounge at like 6 a.m. when not making it. Met these dudes at Cleopatra's Needle, moved to Queens with my Belgian older brothers. So I was 18, 19. It was Nick Tice, if you remember Nick Tice. 3 cool Belgian dudes. They were all, 28, 30, 32.
And
I
you were
was 18. So I learned how to roll cigarettes and, drink beers. And we could play there.
That's the place where you could play.
That's the place where we could play.
Man, 18, I will say, I spent a summer in New York at 18 after I graduated from high school. I
Right.
came out here for a summer. And my memory of it was much more isolating. And and I'm an only child too, so I relate
Right.
both to the idea of being here at 18 with a jazz dream. But on the other hand, I also remember how lonely it was on a
Right.
level, you know? I don't know if you experienced that or not. It sounds like you fell in with these dudes quickly.
I think there was in the first few months there was one time when I remember the call,
Yeah. Yeah.
crying.
Yes.
Like, I want to come home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was isolating. But I guess it only took me 3 months
Yeah.
to find the situation
Yes.
in Queens that was with some people that I kind of knew.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, that I'd been spending time with at least.
Right.
That was cheap and doable. Yeah, I mean $500 for a
And
big
but
one.
and how did you make any money at that point? Did you have gigs? Did you have a
My
day
dad
job?
was helping me.
Yeah.
And then I started gigs, kind of, slowly.
Yeah. What were the first gigs?
The first gig, my roommate got a gig at this place, Soulful, which might still be there, like on 9th Street, between 2nd and 3rd. I remember he's like, oh, the Guinness pipes are really good there. And it was my roommate, Daniel Jodeci on drums, this guy, Nick Tice, lovely bass player, is now back in Belgium, and Seamus Blake on tenor.
Oh.
So I was fucking
First gig with
pumped.
Seamus.
I was fucking pumped. Although I couldn't play really at that point. I don't know what the fuck I was playing. But I was trying. And then
What was the band that Seamus had with all those guys with
Bloom
Reezer?
Daddies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he had already had that band at that point because that was late 90s.
I think I didn't have... Maybe I had a Bloom Daddies record, but I
Yeah.
definitely had this like Mark Maralta,
Yeah.
Seamus,
Totally.
Avishai's on bass.
Yeah, maybe.
That I loved.
Yes.
But, I had bought it at Borders in high school.
Yeah.
Like, oh, cool.
You knew who
Oh,
Seamus
I was up on... I had
Yeah.
always been keeping track of every guitar player, kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, I got to check out. I remember this article, and it was an interview with Charlie Hunter, and he was like, blah, blah, blah. Oh, the new cats, Ben Motter and Kurt Rosenwinkel.
Yep.
And so I was down... Yeah, in high school, we started playing... I would play jazz gigs with the jazzy dudes, and we'd make a little bread, hotel background
Yeah.
music or whatever it was, and then we go to Borders and go hog wild. It
Buy
was-
some CDs.
Yeah, it was all CDs and
Yeah.
gas.
I was going to mention something about Charlie Hunter because I interviewed him for this podcast years ago, and he said, if my kids want to be musicians, there is no way I'm sending them to music school.
Right, totally.
He said, I will support them, and I'll
Yeah.
give them my address book, and they can call anybody in it.
Sure.
That was his thing. He's like, go talk to the cats you want to talk to, but do not spend that money.
Well, and that was the thing. It's like, I could go to new school where, yeah, you can study with whoever you want,
Yeah.
but you can also just go to New York and study with whoever you want.
Right.
Which I didn't do. But I had this place in Queens, and I lived with dudes.
Yes.
Nick in particular was in the scene.
Yes.
And all the people we met, we could play there. So we were having sessions,
Yes.
and my longtime buddy Chris Cheek was
Yeah.
over there back in the day, and
Yep.
Chris Higgins, and having
Yep.
a great time. And that
There's a lot of Spain connection there. There's folks
well,
that end
we
up
had
going
a
to
lot
Spain.
of visitors at
Yeah.
that time coming from Barcelona
Yeah.
through that crew and staying at the house.
Yes.
And I remember like Anton Fear stayed there for a week.
Yeah.
I didn't. At the time, I had no idea, and I
Yeah.
was still just a little baby.
Yep.
So that was, I like to say that was my education. It's
Totally.
like hang and not having to be in the teacher-student related.
Right.
It's like, oh, you're over at my house. Like, we're drinking beers and just having a good time, and
Yes.
check it out. So we had luckily that pad, where it was above a bakery and musician upstairs,
Right.
with a soundproof room of his own. So jazzy, 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 jazzy.
18, 19, 20, jazzy.
Jazzy, jazzy, jazzy. Then started to, I guess play with singers more.
Did you write songs yet?
I was writing a bit. I had gotten a laptop because two of my oldest buddies, Robin McMillan and Jacob Silver, I still play with them. They live here.
Mm-hmm.
They moved about 2 years after to South Williamsburg before the madness as the
Yeah.
beginning. And they were always into recording. So I was like, oh, what is this digital
Yeah.
performer?
Right.
got a laptop,
Yeah.
the shittiest Adderall interface. But I started messing around on that.
Yeah.
You know, writing songs, and those songs, they had lyrics.
What did they sound like, the songs?
Probably, you know, a little Steely Danny, jazzy singer-songwriter.
Yep.
Kind of like some, I mean, I guess, yeah, some of those songs are on some old, unmentionable records.
You know, as we develop and we put stuff out, I mean,
Sure.
we're a couple of grown men here
Yeah.
sitting here, but you know, but there was a time when, you know, we were younger and you put stuff up and then it's there and like your
Right.
whole trajectory is available for people to see, like it or not, you know, like
Yeah. I guess for me, there's so many Ryan Scotts that it's all a jumble. You know, I hate to say, I'm occasionally I'm looking at it just to say, like, how is this arranged? Or like,
Right.
if you Google it, what do you find?
well, can I say your Google game, not
Sucks.
your top asset,
No, totally.
not your biggest talent.
I didn't have a website till like 3 years ago.
I remember. I couldn't find your email to book you on gigs for the longest time. I'd be like,
Well, you got to know the right person.
I'd be like, there's not a biography of you that's
Right.
available anywhere
It's
on
all,
the internet.
It's all happening. It's all.
Oh, that's going to happen now?
That's going to happen pretty soon, I think, at least on some.
Is this an intentional thing?
Well, I'm not a fan of social media.
Clearly.
And computers, really, for that matter. I mean,
See,
I
as
guess
geeky as it is that I brought this thing up about computers when we
Right.
started, I mean, I think that there's an aspect of this that is really specific and true to you. Not only
Right.
are you going to make a record on a tape machine, you're not really on social media, you're kind of a mystery. It's
Right.
like the people that know who you are and dig you totally know you. Hey, say no more. I get it. I know.
Sure.
But then there's a lot of people who do not have that opportunity because you're not making it easy for them.
well, it's not. I mean, it's not that hard. You got to put in 3 words,
Yeah.
4 words,
Right.
to get to the thing,
Right.
You know,
Instead of just Ryan Scott, you gotta
it's
know
like,
Kind Buds or
people say,
Freak.
I can't find this. Well, you didn't look for. Is
Right.
it me? I guess I'm digging for the information that you know, when it comes down to it, how can I bag on computers?
Right.
Because the wealth of information that I can get at and
Yes.
have gotten at, and just discovering podcasts,
Right.
or realizing what they really were
Totally.
about a year ago,
Yes.
and how cool it is, and you know, and now it's like so much that so but if I go on the internet and dig for something, it's like, yeah, you gotta dig to find the
Yeah.
right thing with the right dude. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's there. I don't know, with the social media and all of it, like everyone just, I'm doing this,
Yeah.
this, you know, but like, well, can I just, and I know, and I am a Luddite and cranky old man and all the things.
Right.
But yeah, it's taken this long, you know, you know, once the jazz thing ended and making records for labels, and the whole business broke right then.
It broke right when you got into
Right
it.
when I got
so
into
making
it.
records for labels, tell me about that. When we met, you had just been working on the Christina Corden record.
Right. Okay.
Is that the record you're
first
talking about?
one.
You went to L.A. like John Bryan
Yeah,
was
the
involved
dreamy
weirdly or
situation.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of them. That was the biggest budget one.
Yeah.
that I've gotten to do, and it was great. You know, a week in L.A. with
Right.
my heroes.
Yes.
You know, and seeing it and seeing how they work,
Right.
and then seeing the record not do anything, and seeing how L.A. was functioning at the time.
Was it tempting to you?
Certainly.
I mean, to move to L.A.?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it
But
tempting to you now? All your friends are in L.A., man.
I think I've. I don't
stayed
know.
too long.
I keep saying 5 years ago I should have done it. I mean, it's tempting in a financial way,
I don't know if it is, though, honestly. I mean, if you
but they're
talk...
actually session work. You know.
Is there? Is there?
I think so. At least a little. Well, I just think there's more music business.
Yeah.
There's more studios. We've lost a lot of soldiers. There's things going on. I don't want to be too grumpy about it, but you know, it's like, how often do they really need a professional guitar player? You know, it's like you need the professional drummer, maybe, hopefully, you know, and then to get a vibe, I don't know.
And is that basically your, what did you call it, meal work? I forget what you called it. Like, what is the concept? Like, what is the professional, not the artistic side, but the professional side of what, you do or want to do? Or
I mean, like in the beginning, and I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of years. I was like, okay, come to town, jazz. Like, okay, maybe what do you do as a guitar player in the skill field? Like,
yeah,
just do every jazz gig that you get called to do, and try to make some records. And then like, okay, well, and then sideman, game, and did that a lot. So many years of everything and trying to, and still doing jazz, and the spice of New York is being able to back some singers up, and then.
But that's tricky because by the time, that's how I met you.
Right.
Somebody brought you in to play a live gig on a record that I had, presentation of a record that I worked on, and I don't envy that at all. I mean, you have to go in and learn so many tunes and slot into so many different people's visions of what it is and egos.
Go to rehearsals all the time.
Yeah.
No, that's the thing. Well, and so at the same time, I started a freelance jingle game a little, which I really felt like, no, shouldn't do this. And then eventually, after doing a few, you stood, just like, the first thing I think of is fine.
Yes.
Orchestrate it, whatever.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, do whatever jingle demos during the day, go to the rehearsal, do the gig, blah, 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 fly out of town for something, come back, just trying to do everything.
Yep.
And say yes to everything. And it is hard. And then it starts to, I was like, well, what am I doing? And then the club date thing starts, and did that forever.
I forgot about that. So the club date thing, it's funny, when I moved to New York, I had to wrap my head around it because we would call it something else in the Midwest where I came from. Club dates are basically social gigs. They're like private gigs, weddings and stuff. And it was basically just these like badass Brooklyn guys.
Yeah, it was always good dudes.
Yeah.
But singing the songs at the weddings is no matter. And we wouldn't do top 40.
Right. You had your own repertoire that you would do.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I actually would play.
Yeah.
But after enough of them, it was great money. But how many years of doing that? I don't know. It's all these things. Like, okay, well, I'm doing jingles and a little, whatever session work there is, and then trying to do jazz gigs and now weddings. And I remember having to bail on a real jazz gig for a wedding and thinking like, do I not love jazz? Does this mean?
Or like, why am I here? Why did I come
I need
here?
this money, or it's so much more money.
Yeah.
That's what, it's all these things, jumping between whatever, any work you do, producing so-and-so's record or whatever it is. Like, great. Yeah, mixing whatever little thing. Yeah, I'll mix that, sure.
Yep.
Just hacking and learning, and it's all totally gravy on the learning.
Yeah.
And I don't regret anything I've done as I wallow in debt. But, these things, and like, what? With my heart, and even playing sideman gigs, I just kind of stopped doing stuff that wasn't the right thing, or that I knew would really stress me out.
Well, I was thinking like when I heard A Freak Grows in Brooklyn, what I thought was I felt guilty that I had ever asked you to play any of my shit.
Oh,
you always played it great. I mean, on the few gigs that we've done together, whatever, you always came and played it great and brought your thing to it and learned the parts and whatever, and it was better because you were there. It's not that I ever felt not that I ever felt that you like were phoning it in or anything, but I was just thinking. And part of this is just New York and being around talented people, whatever. It's like we're all doing that. We're all have our own thing that we want to do, and we also are working with other people, and it's all good. All of that is cool, and we're enriched by all of it. But I also can imagine that the handful of times that we've worked together, I know you've been that's only a little sliver of the number of kinds of gigs like that you have done, and all the while. If you've got something that you're trying to do or hoping to get happening, that at a certain point, I could imagine the sort of accumulation of frustration of like, man, I got to get my record done, man. I got to do this. And like, people need to hear where I'm at because like I have a thing to say right now too. That's sort of what I felt when I heard your record.
Well, that's the whole thing. And I feel like it's been 10 years of that you know, I guess I put it down after the 2007 record, and I was just trying to be Guitar Man and investigate all the production, just going through the gig thing.
Yes.
And then, but all the while, like, yeah, you know, I do want to do my thing.
Yes.
And then working on the, you know, writing little songs on the first 4-track over 5 years, practicing, trying to write better songs, still doing all the different gigs and learning more stuff and getting back on my own little one-man band home productions or whatever, tweaking and you know, kind of like, man, if I could just come up with something good enough, or if I could just and playing gigs. Eventually I started playing gigs of my own.
Well, and you started doing these residency gigs, and a lot of them were solo.
Right. Well, that's the last 3 years were solo every Monday. But, you know, twice a month for the 5-8 years before that, with band at Rockwood too.
Yeah.
Doing the runaround.
Yep.
And then, the last 4 years I've kind of got my little city bounce around, although Rockwood's over now, but
for you,
for me,
so
but wanting to do this thing, and like, man, if someone would just throw me a bone of some, you know.
But what bone is there to be thrown?
Of course, and I'm saying that, I realize and I knew there was no bone, but just a older guitar guy or something, or any kind of an opening gig,
right?
And you know. And people have offered me nice things that maybe I didn't say yes to or whatever, but the build up, and then you get to the 100th wedding, and you know, trying different things to deal with that feeling. And
what does that mean?
Oh, just drugs,
medicating yourself just to kind of get through it.
Yeah, just slightly. Yeah, you know, as one does. Just like, yeah, man, this is not. I'm getting older. I've been doing this a long time, and where is this lead? Not to put, you know, you got to do what you got to do.
Did some of that influence the writing on the record? Like, you got to let the wheel roll. Got to, you know, you never know where it's gonna. Like, there's just everything's gonna be fine. The shit's gonna hit the fan. I mean, there's a kind of like
meditation of sorts.
It is, isn't it? Isn't the record a meditation on your kind of worldview as you go through all of this stuff?
Sure, yeah, and just trying to keep things open for interpretation. I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. Working on songs all these years, like, man, I want to do something, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. And meanwhile, like, okay, well, I'm starting to figure this out, or whatever, and having ideas that I want to look at, but just needing time to figure it out.
So did you start saying no to stuff?
Yeah, it's about 3 years ago. Yeah, we went on a vision quest of sorts, my woman Jen and she wanted to do this Earthship Academy in Taos, learn to build these awesome Earthship recycled material, passive heating and cooling, awesome homes in the desert.
Okay.
And I said, yeah, I want to sit in something for a month by myself, and while you're at class, and fuck around and make noise and try and get my thing together. Finally.
Yes. So you went to New Mexico for a month.
Yeah, and we were gone for 2 months. Saved up as much money as we could. Drove out. Hit some friends on the way. Made it to Taos. You know, played a couple gigs. Like, a buddy got me a gig in Austin, solo gig, and, you know, tried to play a couple times. Landed in Taos. I brought a bunch of stuff.
What'd you bring?
I had just bought my Apollo 8. So I had to, this was my opportunity to learn the Apollo, just even for worky work.
Yeah.
So the Apollo, you know, bass, the guitars, super reverb head with a 112 cabinet, as small as I could make it. I didn't take the 8-track. I'm kicking myself. I should have left the computer and taken the 8-track.
Did you take drums?
No, but I was talking to a friend of a friend about borrowing some that would have been better, but the owner of the house was the local, he was a pretty radical dude. He was the local astrologer. Astrologist? Anyway.
Astrological
specialist.
Reader. Yes.
and he had a punk band in the 80s in Phoenix, and
Huh.
blah, blah, blah. He's like, I got drums here.
Oh, so there were drums. Not
Yeah, so
great,
I borrowed
but-
drums
yeah.
there, but they were these Terry Bozzio Remos
Yeah.
that you can pull the heads off of.
Wow.
It was a little rough. I mean, I myself, as a hacky drummer, I like to, my buddies' jazzy vintage drums.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, you hit these and they sound great.
Yeah.
These Remos are a little harder, but whatever. It was a good struggle for me to have, but I was trying to order drum heads and, get them shipped to UPS in town,
Right.
driving back out.
So, but you're there for a month, and and is this the time that you then kind of dive in?
It ended up, it's like, oh, you're going to make a record? I'm like, well, I'm going to try.
Yeah. Did you have tunes? You had to write tunes while you're there.
That's the thing. I had years. I still do. It's like mining through
Ideas.
demos that I've made. There's a bunch of demos from each period of 3 years or whatever
Yeah.
in different styles. And like, well, what can I keep? And rewriting things.
Yeah.
Basically just letting myself get into the spirit. Like, do whatever. Wake up, pump Curtis Mayfield, sit down at the drums, maybe mess with miking them.
Yeah.
See if I can get a drum mix, maybe print something down, just jam with myself.
Yep.
And working on some old ideas, but yeah, I guess writing
Yep.
a fair amount of things. It's hard for me to go, write a track for whatever in the style of X.
Yes.
I spend 2 days
Yes.
getting it together as fast as I can,
Yes.
send it off. I can't just dive back into...
That is a big thing, man. It's so interesting. Like, there's a part of me that thinks it's better if you're going to work. It's better to do what you're describing, which is, okay, you get called, you get to hone your chops,
Right.
learn how to make a song in a style that isn't the way you normally would. It keeps you creatively sharp and all of that stuff. And there's a part of me that thinks it keeps you in shape, your muscles in shape to then
Right.
go and do your thing because you're in the flow.
Sure.
But there's another part of me that thinks, no, you've given a lot of yourself to that thing.
Right.
And the idea that, you're telling yourself the whole time, well, I'm giving myself to this commercial thing or this assignment or this service. I'm doing what I do as a service. I'm doing that so that I can then support my creativity, except that your creativity is depleted by the time you
Right.
get to it. And I wonder, like, would it be easier or harder to have a gig that had nothing to do with that
That's
that
the
made
thing,
money?
right?
And then just
start to
say
ask
that
yourself.
you got to ask yourself. These are the questions we ask. Like, would it make more sense to have a restaurant gig? And then when I go, not a restaurant gig playing, but like literally
Sure.
like work as a bartender or whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or like some other totally
Yeah.
so that when you go into those, into the room and pick up the guitar or sit behind the drums, your head hasn't been in it already
Absolutely.
for somebody else. The deal that I make in my life is the one that you seem to make also, which is, oh no, I would rather be making music. Like, this is the
Right.
thing that I signed up for. This is the thing I want to do. It is still a privilege to do it.
Sure.
It's still a privilege that anybody gives me
Yeah,
any money,
absolutely.
anytime I play music, and you know what I mean? Any
Absolutely.
meal that you eat
Yeah.
that is paid for by playing music, that's a privileged meal.
Totally.
When you think about what other people do.
Yeah.
Nonetheless.
Well, that's the thing. I think it's probably better than working in a restaurant.
yes.
Unless you're really into that.
Totally. But it doesn't diminish what you're describing, which is you can't just turn around. Some
Well,
people
and-
can. It's harder to do it.
I'll just say for myself,
Yeah.
it can really feel like work. It's
Yes.
not necessarily always joyous for me to just have the guitar in my hands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you don't feel that way, you're lucky, I think. But it's like, yeah, that certain things become work, and, depending on who you're working for and
Yes.
what the outcome of the situation and
Yes.
all of these things,
Right.
the fairness of the situation, there again, it is a privilege to get paid to do music
Yeah, but that
stuff.
doesn't mean that you should be taken advantage of.
Yeah, and you see all these things happen. Anyway, I'm still
You're there.
I'm still holding on.
You're holding on. Does it feel like work for you to get in the room and write your own music and make your own music?
Absolutely not. That's my joy.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. And do you think that's reflected in the music?
Absolutely. It's supposed to be fun. Like the music is fun.
Totally. The music is totally fun, even when there's seriousness in the lyrics, or there's like,
right.
Introspection or something contemplative or something that's just like some kind of criticism. What is it? Diet pills and TV dinners.
Boom.
They got, I dig it. But even still, it's joyous music. But one thing I found myself thinking was, and I think this way about the music I make too, and I've gotten this feedback from people who I turn to for advice, not that you've asked me for any advice. If the spirit that's in the tracks that you put out for your record, if you're able to keep that in the commercial work, first of all, that shit would probably fly off the shelves.
I'm not selling that. I'll backtrack a second.
Yeah.
My thing is I keep, if I'm selling the thing off,
Yeah.
I really always try, and probably to my detriment, to draw a line. Like, this is not, I mean, if the spot's only 30 seconds,
Yeah.
whatever, just do
Yeah.
as good as you can. But writing a whole thing that
Yeah.
I'm not going to own anymore,
Yeah.
like I'm not
going to give them my me, but just in a bigger, more sort of like meta thing. It's
Right.
in a more
Well, that's how many Black Keys knockoff tracks.
For sure.
I mean, still get it. That's all I've ever done for years and years and years. All the while
Yeah.
kicking myself like, man, if I just had some of my own songs.
totally.
Not that they'd want to pay me to license it necessarily.
But they might, and at least that's a game that you're playing in which you always win. You know what I
Right.
mean? If they don't choose it, you still have it, and if they do choose it, you have it, and they paid you for it.
Exactly.
What I think it's also a conversation about is what to do with your time.
Right.
How to spend your time. And it turns out, at least for me, that it's if somebody else needs it from me,
Right.
I'm like, okay, this is the most important thing right now. But if it's my own thing, I guess this is me talking about like how to manage time. Like, what are
You're
you
saying you'll dilly-dally with
I'll
it.
dilly-dally a little bit more. I'll take a little more time.
I mean, that's because how do you stop yourself?
Right.
How do you boss yourself?
How do you boss yourself?
The doors lock at a certain hour.
Right,
So-
exactly.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. We went to New Mexico. I had a month. Like, wow, okay, cool. That was really great.
Yeah.
Don't have a record.
What did you have?
Oh, a bunch of demos, a lot of memos, and a couple almost finished songs, maybe.
Right.
And a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of drum shedding.
Yeah.
Just to try and get it to some level. And then we came back, and I started working at my space. A friend came along, started paying for recording time at my fave studio. Did a bunch of sessions there, different cats. Like, I was still writing the songs. I had demos.
Yes.
It wasn't getting me quite right. Went back, redid some stuff.
Did you use any of the tracks that you recorded at your favorite
No,
studio?
it didn't work out with this dude.
That's so interesting, though.
Yeah.
Maybe there were other reasons extenuating that you don't want to get into, but it's interesting because one of the things that I love about the sound of the record is that it doesn't sound like it was made in a big studio. It's like super personal sounding. It has a coherent, closed circuit vibe about it. It is what it is.
Totally. So, well, I'll just do it and we can figure it out later.
Yeah.
But met this dude. He just started throwing down money. Try for these two. Just took them home, and I actually had the first couple demos
Yeah.
off the cassette that kind of had a thing, and it just wasn't
That.
And this dude was doing tons of cocaine. He was a Miami guy, throwing cash, doing cocaine, inviting his friends down.
You're like, I got it made.
He's got radical cocaine, like doing his nice cocaine and playing his college-y tunes. He wasn't a real musician. They were just terrible. Jen was just like, hey, just let it, who else is wanting to help? Just let it play out. And we didn't have any paper going, but he was paying the bills, and it was a lot. And then we did a final session with Hess and Brian Wolf. Like it sounded like voodoo.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Just dry and kick ass.
Yeah.
And we found, I was like, okay, well, here's 6.
Yeah.
These are good.
6 you got with Brian Wolf and Andy Hess?
Yeah. Through all of that, I was in my space all day. I don't have it every day, but practicing drums, miking them into the 4-track, 8-track, just messing with, writing the song, just having fun. No computer. Like, go down there, working on stuff. There's no computer in this room.
Yeah.
This is great. So it didn't work out. I went nuts in my closet and at the space doing all the overdubs, and it was overdubbed out with backgrounds and, triple nines and shit.
But it's arrangement. So you had a lot of arrangement ideas. One thing that it gave you is
and
a lot
I had
of
to. I ended up wiping all the bass. So it was just like I did a bunch of shit to Brian's drums.
Yeah.
And got it to a place that I liked, and and kind of figuring out the whole game here of like, what am I gonna, what is the thing to combine, or how do I get the point across? And then I had Mike McCarthy, my buddy in Nashville. I was finally going to have someone to pay for Mike to mix it, and we can have a good time.
Yeah.
And I sent it to Mike, and he starts working on it, and this dude is not calling him. I end up having to pay Mike $1,000 that I don't have on a credit card just to get him to stop. Then, we kind of work that out. He calls back, or he sends me mixes, and I'm like, what is... I had mentioned Jimmy Douglas way back just because he lives in Miami and, like, the lineage of Jimmy Douglas. And he's like, oh, Jimmy Douglas's assistant did these. And I was like, out of nowhere, sent me mixes of the things. I pop them on. They're like the old basses back in. I had like produced them, and everything a lot of it was wiped, and there was terrible delays and samples on the kick drums, and it just sounded like shit. Like not anything. The guy just wasn't communicating with me at all. And like, I'm not going to sign a $60,000 record deal and give motherfuckers publishing. I mean, that's crazy. Yeah. I've been in the game long enough to know that.
Yeah.
And I don't care that much.
Yeah.
So, and then I was like, I had so many body attack.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, I've never felt like being violated.
Yes.
Maybe when my car got stolen in Gowanus a few years ago. Actually, I wasn't that violated then. Much more violated by these wacky mixes.
This feels wacky. Mixes feel violating. It's like you're not being understood, and if this were to come out, you would feel sick.
No, like that.
You would feel sick if this came out.
Oh yeah, you can't put this out. I'll figure out a way to
not have it. Yeah,
shark your ass. Yeah. So it was like, all right, listen, I'll finish my mixes on these. If it's 1 hour of Jimmy Douglas, he's looking at these. And it really pissed him. He wrote me like some stupid shit. Sent me again, and I was like, dude, that's it. I got to walk, man. And luckily we didn't have anything on paper.
Yeah.
And he probably spent $35,000, but he was just throwing around, never listened to anything I said. So I let it go as far, and when my body started it.
Yeah. So you walk away from those tapes, just forget it.
I was like, well, I can walk away if I don't use them, right?
Yep.
You can't get me. Meanwhile, I was starting to get somewhere on the cassette. And Bill was actually over, and we were, A-Bing, but he's like playing, and I wasn't quite there with the takes on the cassette, but we A-B'd, and it's like, dude, it's more me. It's so much more me.
Totally.
We went out to New Mexico. It's like, this is a breaking point I need to finally follow the rainbow.
Yeah.
So whatever it takes. Started racking up debt. Anyway, and stop weddings, trying to stop, things I don't want to do. Really not. And take the time to figure out whatever this thing's going to be. Get it going. Something, really just a calling card. A little art project calling card.
The thing is, yes, and this is of no use to you, it's so good.
Thanks, man.
It's just so good. I mean, it didn't have to be that good. It broke my heart, man. It really got me. This one just got me. I don't know why.
I'm so glad. Once I started to get into it, trying to make a record on that thing.
Yeah.
I was just trying to figure out how to make it sound just enough like a real tape machine.
Yeah.
Plus, I can carry it back and forth.
Would you make a record like this again?
Working on it just once. I'm finishing up some songs, but I'm just trying to finish as many songs from the backlog, because I've worked out the system now. It's like it's
so.
Fun.
I was just home visiting my parents. I have that machine. I almost brought it out. I almost brought it home with me
It's
just
so
now.
fun. I think it's a great tool. Even just
I just want to track drums through it and hear what it sounds like.
yeah. Oh, dude, you never go back.
But it's so funny because I had that thing when I was 14 or 15.
Right.
And as soon as I had the means, I started buying ADATs. I was like,
See,
forget
I don't
this
know
thing.
about ADAT. I mean,
It was before you could record on the computer. You could get an ADAT machine
so you print the 8-track to the ADAT.
No, I stopped using the 8-track and I started using
Oh,
ADATs.
That was multi-track.
8-track.
Oh, it was a tape. I
It
mean,
was
I
a
can visualize the
SVHS
machine
cassette tape.
a little bit smaller.
No, that was the DA88s for the small ones. That was
Okay.
Tascam made the DA88s and Alesis made the ADATs, and they were in competition with each other. I was an ADAT guy.
Did it sound better than the cassette?
Well,
at
it
the
did to
time?
my 1996-year-old brain. You know what I mean? It was
sure.
digital.
Right, it's
And
digital, right?
Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill was made on that. Duran Duran, Ordinary World was made on those
Okay.
machines. There were big pop records that were being made on ADATs, and I was like, I could have the same machine that they made Jagged Little Pill on in my house.
yeah.
You know,
Cha-ching.
but it was digital, and as soon as that happened, I walked away from my 8-track cassette machine because, of course, the whole concept was that's not pro, and I'm
Of course.
pro. You
Yeah,
know?
totally.
I'm a pro now. It took hearing your record to remember that the tools are what we make them
Right.
and make of them, you know. But more and more I hear you talking about how look, what I love about the record is only partly the sound of it. I know that the sound emotionally changes things and it makes us feel the way you want us to feel when we hear this thing, something you're going for.
Right.
But the writing is fucking strong. Your playing is amazing. The singing is great. I mean, I think you could make that whole record in the box if you chose to, and it would
Sure.
probably I still would love it. But on a technical level, you could. But what I wonder about is if it would be the same because of all of those, you know, like we talked about at the beginning, like all of those limitations, all of the relationship with the tool, the very speed and the,
Right.
you know, that's what part of what I'm responding to is just that like you're having a relationship with the process.
Yeah.
That's
well, that's
part
the
of it.
thing. It's my personality. I've always been bitching about computers shit, you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, there is, it's like, yeah, okay, I'm
Yeah.
going to try and make a record on this fucking cassette
Yeah,
and
yeah.
put that out, because it's not going to sound like the other stuff.
That's true.
You
It
know,
doesn't.
and it sums up how I feel
As a person.
about everything.
Yes.
You know,
Well, that's what let's drive this thing home now. That's what I think. I think you just said it. That's what I think about you. I don't know what to hope for you. I don't know what you hope for. I don't know what success or failure would look like to
Right.
you or not. I think you're playing by a different set of rules. I mean, everybody is, but I think the stuff that's motivating you is just different.
totally. I mean, I'd like to open for the Derek Trucks band. That is, or the Tedeschi Trucks band, excuse me.
That would be success.
I mean, that's one of those things. Like, of all the, when I went to the first gig, or
Yeah.
the first record
Yeah.
tour, me and my dad
Yeah.
and my buddy Drew, we were the only ones there. And I knew I had gone to guitar camp in Connecticut, so that's another, like, there's people from that.
What do you think about guitar camp? You don't think music school isn't the right move, but music camp, jazz camp, and guitar camp.
Well, that's
those
the thing. I had guitar camp and jazz camp,
So-
so by the time college camp came, it was like,
I already had this.
yeah, let's not. It's fine. I wanted to be here.
Yeah.
I was like the loneliness was much less because I was like there was a moment when I was going to try and graduate early from high school,
And come here then.
and I came Johnny Lang and Kenny Wayne Shepherd were around the same
Oh,
time.
I see. So there was a part of you, and you did describe this, that your high school band was doing well. There was a part of,
I mean, it's goofy looking back on it,
but you were like, maybe I'm going to get signed. I'm going to be like a kid.
blues
guy.
Try and follow that. I mean, I was not singing at the level of Johnny Lang by any means at that time. I mean, when that came out, I was like, oh, cool. But that was the game. I mean, then
Yeah.
it's like funny now that I'm back to. It's like, yeah, full circle. Want to learn jazz so I could be free, and now
Had to free
how
yourself
do
of
I-
jazz.
Yeah, free myself of jazz.
Well, you're so nasty. You're just a funky guitar player. I mean, what I just hear so much funky back phrased. Guitar players don't know how to backphrase a lot of times. I feel like you're so behind it.
I mean, guitar players is a bad. That's a hard place.
Is that a fair thing?
Hard
Am I
rock.
allowed to start any sentence with the word guitar players and then say anything after that would like represent an entire category of people?
Yeah, guitar. Well, it's a funny thing, guitar. I mean, and I'm constantly talking to people about these concepts, but you know, as they say, the easiest to play, hardest to master. Intervallically, it's odd.
Mm-hmm.
All of these things, you know, I guess I was hanging out with a real guitar player talking about this, but it's like, yeah, you gotta bust past a point to, and then, I mean, just like the Charlie Brown, learn everything and then forget it.
Yeah.
But to unlock all the things, or to get to pure music,
Yeah.
guitar players, you know, I mean, so much, I call it finger wagging, or there's so, oftentimes the hand is dictating the melody. It's like, well, the hand's not your mind's supposed to dictate the melody. Your hand's dictating the melody.
Meaning what's possible on the instrument.
Yeah, or just moving your hand, or like, oh, I've seen now, we've had so many years of dudes just like in a box there, moving their fingers around in whatever way. And this is a longer conversation, but
I'm curious.
Yeah, guitar, man, it's a rough one. And I,
Yeah.
Well, and then songwriting, I mean, geez. That's the one that's really like, only now do I feel like, oh, right, that's how you do it. You don't know how to do it. Oh, right, that's how you...
So let's talk about that for a second. How did you get there? What did you do? You just did it a lot? What were you looking for in your songwriting?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the old songs were strange poetry set to melodies that I had written.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I mean, it's all this thing talking about the jazzy singer-songwriter. I mean, just how do you boil it down? I mean, I guess everyone wants to make the most simple, direct way to the goal line, or you know what I mean? Like how do I make it really simple, but it still sounds like it's? I mean, it's the same exact thing.
There's so many lyrics that I just feel like I know what's in your head a little bit through here. That's what I think, and I don't know if that's true or not, or if you just find
it sounds like being in my head.
Yeah,
basically.
That's what you ended up finding a way to write was, this is kind of what it's like in my head.
Well, and if I'm just in my rooms tinkering away and you know, trying to mold whatever comes out, then it really sounds like in my head.
Yeah.
If I can do some panning and
you're so locked up in the technical stuff. It's just funny, man. It's interesting that you're overlooking how much music has been like. That's all. Fuck that. I mean, that's all what that is.
I'm just having fun with it.
But that's what turned you on, though. That's the thing that got you excited and back in it, is being able to do that.
I guess so. I mean, you know, trying to write trying to make something that I like.
Yeah. Yes.
You know, and that's the thing.
That's really. That's success. Make something you like.
Find some lyrics that make sense. You know, I'm still trying. Still trying to make sense. But it's like, I think these songs make more sense than anything I've done before. Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm just. I try not to think of like really specific story things. I mean, I'm open to it, but
yeah, what you're writing is like some of the hardest stuff, because it's like to say something about life, to say something about the world, to say something about what's going on,
right,
from your point of view that doesn't sound preachy or.
I hope it doesn't.
No, it doesn't, and because those are the kind of songs I want to write too, like songs that say something about life, about the world, about what I see, and do it in a way that feels personal and also connected to other people's experiences. And, you know, man, I don't have anything else to say except thank you. It was such a pleasure to find that record, and
fucking A.
And thank you for making it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I hope I didn't blab too crazy.
You blabbed beautifully.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to it.
There he was, Ryan Scott. Boom. A freak. Growing in Brooklyn. Go to his Bandcamp, give him the money. I'll be back soon with more of this goodness. Until then, I'll talk to you soon.